welcome everyone to this live chat with Reverend Professor G. Erhabor. And today we shall be considering the fallouts of the just concluded International Leadership Conference 2020. It was a huge success. A lot of people were blessed. I personally have several testimonies from this conference. Today we shall consider most of the topics and points raised, especially the cardinal principles for leading in times like this. The theme of the conference, like we all know, is leading and living in times of crisis. It was wow, it was in fact so fantastic, and the lessons learned cannot be forgotten in a hurry. We have the regular host, who is a physician, a pastor, a mentor to several millions of people across the world, an international leadership coach and expert. He is no other person than the Reverend Professor G. Erhabor. Thank you very much, sir, for being here.
Yes, I'm so happy to be with you today. I'm so glad. And I want to use this opportunity to thank those who have attended this conference, whether you watched us on site or you watched us on Zoom or Facebook. And today we are going to be looking at certain cardinal principles we discussed. And I hope you will be attentive to listen. Set up a watch party around you, call your friends, and then be part and parcel of this wonderful program. It was a hectic program, but we learned quite a lot. Thank you.
Yes. Another round of applause for Reverend Professor G. Erhabor. Thank you, sir. With me here are panelists. We were around last week, and we're still going to be asking questions. By my right is Dr. Nick Erhabor. Thank you for coming.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone.
We have the pastor, Dr. Kemi Taiwo. Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you so much.
We have Dr. Akpomuji Paul. Thank you for coming. And then Dr. Adiola, God bless you for coming.
Thank you for having me.
And I'm Dennis Imafidon. I'd like to say that this meeting greatly blessed me. Since then, I've not recovered from it. In fact, especially the cardinal principle that you mentioned about leaders being of great integrity and character. In fact, I've been thinking about this concept since that time. Sir, I want to find out, when you talk about integrity, character, where is the place of reputation? I just felt, reputation has a way of also coming up.
Yes, thank you so much for answering that question. I first, when we had the leadership conference, I said that everything falls on stance on integrity. Now, the word integrity is derived from the word integral. That means a leader is consistent, a leader is not subject to craftiness or crooked deals. What a leader is in the dark is what a leader is before people. There is no dichotomy, or there is no division between what a leader is in secret and what is in the public. And I tried to mention three kinds of integrity. The internal integrity, which has to do with who the leader is. Now, there is also the behavioral integrity, in which whatsoever the leader says, that is what he does. Then there is also the performance integrity, which is how the leader relates to people or how people perceive him to be. Now, these three things are important to establishing a firm integrity in the life of the leader. On the other hand, reputation is what people think you are or what people say you are. Someone can manipulate his reputation, but it's difficult to manipulate your integrity. In those days, people used to talk about individualism and personality. That what you are as an individual, your intrinsic person, is different from your personality, so your outward performance. So integrity is as constant as the Northern Star. It's integral. But reputation has a lot to do with the variableness of external circumstances.
Thank you so much, sir. I must confess that I was immensely blessed during the International Leadership Conference. I was immensely blessed by all the sessions. And I just want to ask, as a follow-up to this question on integrity, does it mean that a leader cannot accept favors, particularly when we have not solicited for it?
Yes, I think there is a question that was, or a leader who spoke about a former vice chancellor who was in one of the leadership meetings, who talked about the fact that many times people gave her things during her period as a leader, and in many cases she refused them. And some people wondered whether we should not take. Now, she's a Christian, and she said that each time people give her a gift, she tried to look at her spirit to see whether this is a bait or it is genuine. And the first, I want to say that a leader should not be seeking for gifts. He should not always be looking for what he can get. Because if you are seeking for gifts, you will not be innocent. The second thing I want to say is that a leader should be careful about using, people give them gifts because they anticipate a favor. And so they, by and large, bribe him or buy his mind. And to do that is to state what you believe right from the beginning of time. And say, this is what you stand for. I stand for honest work. Go and do your work. I'm not a 10%er. I'm not a 20%er. Some years ago, I was in a place called Nelsey in Britain to speak. And I met a very big businessman who said he came to Nigeria to do business. He said when he landed Murtala Airport, he was taken to the hotel, and the next day he had to meet with some of his business partners in Nigeria. And they started talking to him about 10%. I said that was odd. And according to him, he had to leave the next day. He just forgot about the business. Now, that is integrity. Sometimes people can give you gifts to appreciate you, to be thankful. But don't go seeking for it. Don't go looking for it. And when you know that, and your spirit tells you that this gift is a Greek gift, or it's a bait somebody is giving to you, then just refuse it.
Thank you very much, sir. Also, in line with the question of integrity and gift taking, so I still want to ask, because I am in the academia, and this is common generally. How do we really recognize that a particular gift is inducement? What if one decides to steer clear or stay off gift taking generally? Some people would think you are too harsh, you are too hostile, you are not friendly, that's why you're not taking gifts.
Well, I mean, if you give gifts preceding an action, you are a student, you are going for exams, you now give a gift. Or you are going to be reviewed for promotion, you give gifts out. People visually know that this is really a gift you are giving in anticipating. But if you have graduated and your boss or your lecturer has done so well for you, and as your parting gift, you just say, sir, I have a card for you. I have a book for you. You know that this is a clear gift. Any gift in the process of performing your duties in which the person who is giving the gift is going to be a part of either the beneficiary or is going to be involved in it, must be refused. Now, if somebody takes an absolute decision that he doesn't want to take any gift, that's good for him, but he shouldn't also take an attitude. You know, the attitude should not also come that I don't want to take any gift, don't greet me, don't thank me, do your work. That to me is an extreme. You see, refusing to take gifts should not also make you hostile in your personality. People want their leaders to be likable. There's what they call a management likability index. You expect your leaders to have a high likability index so as to perform well. But do not, at the same time, move your likability index to soliciting, which is wrong.
Thank you very much, sir. I'm still going to ask further about this giving thing. from the point of a follower now, during the leadership conference, there were a lot of talks about mentoring, reverse mentoring, and I know that you teach a lot about giving and then about taking care of your mentors. Sir, to what extent can you go in reaching out to your mentor, in giving to your mentor, that it will not be misinterpreted?
Well, I think, first of all, I see mentorship as symbiotic. I see it as bi-directional. You try to be good to someone, the person tries to be good to you. It's just like what Dale Carnegie wrote in his book in the How to Win Friends and Influence People. And they had what they call the debit-credit balance. That anytime someone gives you a gift, you are a debt and you have to pay it back. So in order for balance to happen, every good deed, every good performance requires a reciprocity. But clearly, doing that will be an ongoing process. It will be appreciating people. It will not be something you have to put a rule to and say, look, mentor or mentee, you must do this. But it's out of a good heart, out of a grateful heart, out of a thankful heart. In fact, gift doesn't have to mean you have to go out to the marketplace and buy something or go to the bank and lodge money. Thank you is a great gift. A good card, you know what I mean? Talking about how your mentor has influenced you. You know, as somebody once said, he said, appreciation or encouragement is the oxygen of the soul. And William James told us that appreciation is one of the greatest needs of the human soul. That once people are not appreciated, they get depreciated. So appreciation doesn't have to be monetized or what do you call it, get a gift from it. It just shows that you are a thankful person, you are a grateful person. You know, your father gives you a meal, somebody takes you to a restaurant, you say thank you. Somebody helps you on your way to success, you say thank you. And that's what we mean.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank
Such
you
a
very much.
powerful answer. I really appreciate your answers. I'll debate a little so I don't belabor that. You told us during the conference that leadership is influence. And I'm wondering, how do we effectively influence the people around us for good?
Well, you know, I even said this last week that you can either be a person, influence could be positive or negative. We can't rule out, influence is not always positive. Some people positively influence people to great heights, and some people negatively influence people and bring them down. When we say leadership is influence, we say that leaders are influencing people for a greater good, for a greater benefit, so that they can, you know, do bigger works, so that they can build up the institution. So that is influence. Influence that is positive. Influence that makes you stronger and capable and more formidable. And how does that happen? You know, somebody once said that the greatest or the best way a leader can lead is by the life he lives. And then Jesus Christ said, I have shown you example that you might follow. And so when you see your leader is a good person, he's a caring person, he wants the good of the people, he's not self-centered, he's not always after himself, that's a great influence. And how can you do it? Lay the example. Show you care. Show you can go the extra mile. Show you are interested in those you are called to lead. A lecturer should not just be interested in teaching and set exams, but he should help the students get skills, mature, get trained. And sometimes, if the student is not doing well, look for a way to enhance his skill. So you know that this person is really involved in making you get the best.
Thank you very much, sir. Sincerely, we are blessed by your teachings, and a lot of testimonies abound. One of the points you raised during the teaching on the candidate principle was intelligence, that leaders must have intelligence. I also feel that for you to influence your followers, you must be intelligent. But I want you to still dilate on this. Is there any form of intelligence? What
Yes, you see, in one of the Christian setup that I've been involved with, many people talk about anointing, that all a leader needs is the power of God. It needs the healing of the sick, raising of the dead, and that's all they think they need. But fundamentally, for you to be an effective leader, you need intelligence. Daniel was gifted with the gift of intelligence. We're told that Daniel and the 3 Hebrew children, they had insight, they have understanding, they had wisdom. In addition to God gave them intelligence. We're told of a man called Basilea in the Bible, Exodus, who has skills and crafty in many workmanship. That man was intelligent. We're told about David, who said God, he led the people he shepherded them with integrity and with his skillful hands. That again has to do with intelligence. We are told that Jesus Christ grew in stature, in favor with God, and in wisdom. That also has to do with intelligence. Hosea said, my people are destroyed because of lack of wisdom. That also has to do with intelligence. But I tell people that there are many forms of intelligence. There is the intelligent quotient, we all know, which can be assessed psychologically, and you can say this has a high intelligence or low intelligence, but that sometimes doesn't equate clearly with what happens in the society. Then there is the emotional intelligence. That started by a man called Daniel Coleman in Harvard. And all it deals with is your relational skills, your ability to handle situations, whether you are proactive or you are reactive. Then I have what they call the risk quotient, which is also a form of intelligence. And as a leader, how are you able to take a risk? When situations come, you don't just do things like that. And I also added the SQ, the spiritual quotient. In which a leader too, he has the spiritual strength to be able to hold things. And so intelligent quotient is not just the raw things of understanding the act of leadership or the raw involvement in leadership, but your emotional way of relating to people. And now you're able to craft your wisdom into situations. A leader must think. I think it was Albert Einstein that said that if you don't think, then God would have needed to give you a brain. A spinal cord would have been good. A leader must think. He must not just be somebody who obeys others. He must think. He must be rational. He must reflect. He must brainstorm. He must ask questions. He must question the status quo. And that's what makes him intelligent and able to do more things. He must be creative.
Thank you very much, sir. Just as a follow-up to that question, during the talk, you also gave a point as part of the cardinal principles for leadership. And that's the matter of, you said leaders must spend time training themselves. For me, that point became very personal because I happen to be in a department that is focused on training. I mean, that's what we do basically. So, sir, I want you to shed more light. What are the strategies? How would leaders improve themselves through training?
The truth about it is that excellence is always under construction. Whenever a man stops learning, he stops growing. Learning and training is so fundamental to the greatness of anyone. I learned some time ago that even physicians need to retrain every 3 to 5 years. Because people say that whatever you learned in the medical school is renewed as much as 3 to 5 years, and even faster. And that if someone is not training and reading and developing himself, he will be behind his field. Now, the great Billy Graham was asked the question, and he said, if he was to live his life again as an evangelist, he will spend 2/3 of his time reading and preparing himself, then only 1/3 preaching. Jesus Christ lived for 33 years, and 30 years was virtually a silent period in his life. Many historians tell us that during those 30 years, Jesus was preparing for a 3 years ministry. That's ratio 1:10. Every great man that I've known on the surface of the earth, if people say that greatness is 1% inspiration, 99% perspiration. So training and retraining is a good thing. I mentioned last week that someone like the great American President Kennedy was one of the fastest readers in the world. The Spurgeon, the great preacher, used to read 5 books in a week. And by his death, he has read 16,000 books. A leader who does not read and who does not retrain himself, who does not improve his skills, will not succeed. And so we need to invest time in going to conferences, in attaching ourselves to mentors, in reflecting, reinventing, in thinking, in writing, in equipping ourselves in every way, studying the latest technology in our field, and studying the latest breakthroughs in our field. That makes us a frontline leader. Without that, we are in the back burner of history.
So, just a follow-up question. You have said several times that you read many books, even while in medical school. And in this contemporary world of people trying to make ends meet, people living in busy cities and the like, how was it different during your time that you had to spend, even till now, you still read many books? I mean, was it different during your time?
Abraham Lincoln has said, Abraham Lincoln, the great American president, he appears to be my political hero, said that if ever he is given a job, he will spend time sharpening the sword before doing the job. And it was the one that said that I will prepare myself, and when situation comes, I will be ready. The truth about it is that he who does not have time to read does not have time to grow. Somebody once said that if you want to hide things from a mediocre, put it in a book. In any great institution, if you go to any great man's house, the first thing you admire most is his library. It's not his kitchen, it's not his sitting room. And so most great men, they spend, in fact, I know of some men who have a whole house dedicated to their library. One of the great preachers, in America, has a whole house for his library. Ganifayemi has almost a whole house for a library. Chief Obafemi has a large library. So we don't have any excuse not to. You see, what are you chasing? The man who is knowledgeable, we get in 1 second what a man who just works out will not get in over 3 years. Knowledge bridges the gap, between mediocrity and excellence, between poverty and wealth.
Thank you so much, sir, for that insightful response. It's really instructive for me. Sir, one of the key points that you mentioned during the conference was that leadership is imitating Christ. You also said that humble leaders rule the world. In these days where a lot of emphasis is laid on assertiveness, how can a leader be humble? I mean, there is every tendency that his subordinates will trample on him.
Well, it is not only what I said, but I think it is. I would like to show you something of the things I mentioned when we were talking. All over the world, people are now coming to the understanding that the humble leader is it. The humble leader is it. Is the only person that makes a difference, is the only person that brings the organization to great heights. And that once a leader is not humble, then he cannot make an impact in the lives of the people. And I think there is something, I will try and scroll down to mention something I mentioned about humility. In fact, all the great all the great leaders, I think let me just, it's not clearly here now. Jim Collins was telling us very, very clearly that when he studied greatness among men, he found that the leaders were very humble, they were very self-effacing. When they succeeded, they attributed it to their members or to their workers. When they failed, they looked at themselves. Jesus Christ, who is the greatest leader the world has ever known, said, "Learn of me, for I am meek and lowly in heart." Paul said, "I'm the least of the apostles." Solomon says that God exalts the humble, but then he brings down the proud. If you look at all the mission statement of almost all the great CEOs and also the great companies in the world, is basically subsumed in humility. They are always customer driven. They don't think about themselves. They don't carry airs. I went to a very big hotel somewhere in the US, and after breakfast, I noticed that the CEO of that company was involved in cleaning the place and clearing the place. And he did it consistently throughout the period I was in that hotel. You see, greatness simply can be equated with humility. The humble person will accept feedbacks, and so he will grow. The humble person will create space for others, and so the company can become more energetic. The humble person will not be critical, and so he can encourage others. The humble person will not feel slighted, and so he can endure for a very long time. The humble person will not say he knows it all, and so he will be amenable to correction. So the humble person creates space for people to grow, and by that way he grows. Now, some people think that because I'm humble, somebody will undermine me. Humility is not synonymous with foolishness. It's not synonymous with lassitude. It's not synonymous with being a low lifer, or synonymous with you're not being capable. Humility is strength under control. It is strength shrouded in gentleness. And everybody wants to like a gentle person. And gentleness really is what breaks bones. Violence is already obvious.
Thank you, sir. Like everyone has said, there were a lot of points to take home during this particular conference. And let me just take this time to let us know that if you missed any parts of the conference, please go back. It's all over the space, Facebook, YouTube. Please go back and listen. There were instructive messages that we took home, and I'm sure it will help all of us. Sir, I want to ask about influence. During your talk, you said leadership is influence. In fact, you said you can't call yourself a leader if you do not influence the people. Now, I was wondering, how do you assess the fact that you are influencing your followers? One. And then two, if you feel that you've done so much, you've talked, you've lived by example, and you still feel that your followers are not being influenced, what strategies do you take to ensure that they are being influenced?
Now, the truth about it is that change takes time to evolve. And people are changing, and you may not even know. And the change may not bring up a radical change. It may just be simple changes gradually. And so great leaders don't begin to get discouraged. I always tell people that one thing that makes you a great leader is to keep your eyes on the goal. Don't be distracted by things around you. Always keep your eyes on the goal and keep pursuing that goal. One day you will get it. The truth about it is that influence is not what you say, it's what you are. Influence is what you do. And to know you are a person of influence is how does the establishment look when you are there? How does the establishment look when you are off? Do people miss your absence? And do people feel your presence? A man of influence in 1 second can do more than a talking leader can do in a whole year. Sometimes a leader's presence is enough to create a change. I remember there was some years ago, somebody saw a great CEO sitting at the back of the conference. And they said, you are the leader you are the CEO of this company. Why not sit in front? He said, anywhere the CEO sits, that is where the company is. And the way that he was saying to us that the CEO doesn't need to dramatize his importance. His importance is seeing how he treats people. As he gets into the workplace, he notices things are not working where he cleans the floor. He greets the staff from the janitor to the assistant manager. They saw how he's concerned about everybody's welfare. The CEO goes around to ask more, even far deeper, how's your wife doing? How are your children doing? You look so miserable. What's happening? They want to be part and parcel of your suffering. They want to empathize with you. So that is enough to touch a person and to know that this man is not just wanting to lead us or wanting to use us, he wants to build us. And so a leader's influence is silent, sometimes not even seen, but over the years, it shows forth in the way the leader does things.
Thank you very much, sir, for that answer. I just want to take a cue from the last question. Moving further, one of the things you mentioned was that leaders inspire, they mobilize a team, they have good social skills. How do you mobilize a team, especially in a divergent environment where there are divergent views, people are not the same, they have different opinions about things? How do you mobilize a team?
First of all, you can't mobilize a team till you have a set goal. An army cannot get followers until there's a battle and there is a mission. So if you want to get a team, there must be a clear mission. And in that mission is very important. So you form out of the mission, and initially after forming your people, they could go through a period of storming when everybody is trying to juggle for this thing. Then you're now going to a period of norming. When all of you are well, we are now settled down before you go into the place of performing. And then from performing, you're now going to the place of achieving. So the important thing is to get people who share your mission, who share your goals, who believe in you, and then to work. Then they learn that leadership is not competitive, it's complementary. We want to help each other. We want to see each other succeed. We want to achieve a goal. It's not about me, it's about us. You change the I to we. You change the my to all of us. When one person wins, everybody wins. So that's how a team spirit is. A team spirit assumes that success is not defined by one individual. I like what Messi said. Now, in the recent La Liga, the Messi's club, Barcelona, did not win the league. But Messi won some trophies. And one of them was the highest goal scorer and many other things like that. And they asked him, he said, this is not about an individual success. He was saying that being a success is not the most important thing. It's about the team. And so his team is a spirit. It's the way we think. When we see that if one wins, all wins. And if all wins, one wins. It takes time to form a team. It goes through a period of storming. But when you now settle down, you can perform well.
Sir, sorry, just as a follow-up to that question, you, in your sermons, including the last conference, you talked about not stealing the hearts of the people. There is a leader, and then we have sub-leaders. If a sub-leader is trying to steal the heart of the people they are leading from the general leader, and then he may say he's trying to influence. This is coming from the question of influence, trying to mobilize and influence people in your subgroup. But what if this person takes the people's hearts away from the leader, the overall leader, just because the person listens to the sermon of influence? How do we deal with that?
I found out that anything negative, it may just be small, you say about a leader around his subordinates and followers will affect the person you talk about. For example, if you say, well, the man's sermon is too long, or you say the man is not well dressed, or the man is too harsh, no matter how benign and correct that statement is, it will affect a virgin mind the way he sees his leader. If you keep giving those negative, in quote, truthful statements, over time, it begins to get into the subconscious of the leader, of the follower. And one day you will find that the man will just say he doesn't want to stay in that place again. He doesn't know why. Not knowing that he has been hanging around negative people. So if anybody is going to survive in any association, when you notice there are people in that establishment that are not positively disposed to your leader, that do not respect your leader, do not honor your leader, I think you should run from them as you will run from COVID-19.
Thank you so much, sir.
Yes, the other thing I want to say is still developing on that. When a person is your friend and the person is not disposed to your leader, and you are that person's friend and you are that person's your leader's friend, one of you must be a traitor, or both. And then the third reason is, if people now become your friend and their zeal and commitment to the mission is becoming reduced, they are not enthusiastic, they are not doing what they should do, and they are not committed, then what influence are you exerting? It's very subtle. And this is what the Bible calls in Galatians, "O foolish Galatians, you have run well. Who has bewitched you?" Followers or sub-leaders should direct people to the leader and the mission. In fact, I always say, don't seek to form favorites within an establishment. You're going to divert people's interest. They are not there because of you, even if you brought them. Allow them to be committed to their leader. And as somebody said, don't be guilty by association. So when a person is guilty by association, is always speaking to people, leading to people, and they are not doing well. That's not good. And let me tell you this, no matter how friendly you are with a leader, if he finds out that those around you are consistently negative against him, he will not trust you. You will lose your credibility with him. And if you hear things about your leader behind them and you condone it, then you can't be trusted. In fact, that is one great reason why establishments collapse.
Thank you very much, sir. That's a big group. Let's put our hands together and appreciate Pastor for such great wisdom. Sir, how do we just oppose having sense of inadequacy and being an incurable optimist? I know of a leader who wept before his followers because he couldn't just, because of the COVID-19, just came out and started weeping and felt very inadequate and all that. Is it not opposite the fact of being optimist?
Well, inadequacy has to be looked in the right context. When I spoke on inadequacy, I looked at it in a Christian context, that our inadequacy makes room for God's power. We don't wallow in our inadequacy. We don't rejoice in our inadequacy. We don't use our inadequacy as a crutch for inefficiency. And we don't use our inadequacy for an excuse to miss the pathway of excellence. Inadequacy is a quest to be adequate. It's a desire to do well. And it stops us from hubris and pride, and allows us to allow others help us, and more than that, to tap in on divine power. But incurable optimist is a person who believes on a journey to greatness. The path could be winding, could be tortuous, things are difficult. You can have tornadoes, volcanoes, betrayers, scarcity, but don't look back. I always say this, that a postage letter sticks to this envelope till it gets to its destination. So an incurable optimist is a person who has put his hands on the plow and doesn't go back. And that is how greatness is. Greatness is always subjected to all kinds of difficult situations in life. As people say that tough times don't last, only tough people do. Look through history. The men who will move institutions forward are not the men who have not faced challenges or crises. They are the men who realize that challenges and obstacles are opportunities to do better.
Thank you so much, sir. I have been immensely blessed. You have shed so much light on some areas of leadership that is very, very crucial. I want to ask a question still about the leader exerting influence. How does the leader handle people who consistently undermine his authority?
Yeah.
People who are on his team who feel that, oh, we grew up together. After all, we know how you started. And so they consistently undermine his authority. How?
Well, the settings differ, but I give my own philosophy. My philosophy is based on a man called Gideon in the Bible. This man, Gideon, was given a task to go and conquer the Amalekites. On his way, some of his brothers and sisters were mocking him, or brothers were mocking him. How would he be the one? Why didn't he consult us? Gideon says, well, let me go to the battle first. And then when I come back, I will deal with you. And as everything could happen, he went to the battle. He won. He defeated the Amalekites. Then he now zeroed in on those who were against him. Another person is Nehemiah. I've always found out that at the point of a great mission, you will find people who want to distract and weaken your resolve. Nehemiah had this great vision of reaching out and building the temple. And there were people who wanted to distract him. Oh, come over to us. Oh, what you are building will soon quench. But Nehemiah said that he knew. Some of them even prophesied. But Nehemiah said he knew that God had not sent them, but that they were working on a mission to ensure he does not build. And he said, because of that, he faced it all. Look at Jesus Christ. There's no man in the history of this world that has ever received the great antagonism that Jesus paid. But the Bible says that Jesus put his eyes steadfastly in Jerusalem. Look at Abraham Lincoln. He was one of the most criticized American presidents. And one time he said if he was to reply all his detractors or respond to everything people have said against him, then that would be enough business for him to do in the State House. But what he would do is to keep focusing on what he has been called to do. If at the end of the day he does not succeed, then nothing happens. But if he succeeds, no one would ever remember what the detractors are. Tell me now, how many people remember those who called Jesus Christ names? How many people remember all those people who abused him and called him all kinds of things? Detractors only should push you to be determined and face your direction. Don't spend time, fighting your enemies. Spend time focusing on your mission. Then your enemies will diminish the more you go forward.
Thank you very much, sir. Sir, I must confess that we have been richly blessed by this very important point. During your talk on leadership, one principle that you mentioned is leaders must have well-refined intentions. And it's looking like all of these things you've been talking about boils down to intentions. Please, can you help us shed light on this, sir?
Somebody was saying that a fanatic is a man who redoubles his effort when he has forgotten his aim. All over the world, people have found out that the greatest thing that leads to achievement is goal setting. The first few things that were written on goals was research that was done on goals, was done on Harvard scholars who graduated. And they found out that those who wrote goals did better than those who had a goal did better than those who never had goals. And those who had goals and wrote down these goals even did far, far better than those who had goals and did not write them. And I'm sure those who wrote goals and meticulously seek to achieve them. There is something about the human brain that when you focus, things happen. And so intention has a lot to do with focus. I say that intention creates attention, and attention gives room to achievement. Before a leader sets out on anything, even to the minutest detail you are given, you must ask this question: what is the intention? Why am I told to do this? One of these great philosophers say that when you have a why for existence, then you can live with any how. And so, why is your intention? Jesus Christ came with one simple intention: not to live but to die. And when people try to distract him from his intention, he didn't. And so, definition of leadership is intention, intention, intention. The why before the how.
Thank you, sir. During the conference, there was a particular point that I wrote everywhere because it stood out for me and it summarized everything that we learned. It said, if you do not want to do something, you look for an excuse. But if you want to do something, you look for a way, meaning that there's always a way unless you choose to give an excuse. Now, as a leader, you tend to, if there's one thing I've learned from you, is to delegate duties. Now, if you are used to delegating duties, and every time you delegate duties to your people, they always come up with excuses. How do you handle such?
So one thing I have made a mistake in the past is to make presumptions. You see, between you and your followers, there may be about 20 years of experience. You may have been well trained. You may have gone through a lot of experience they do not have. And so don't expect your followers to suddenly be like you. And so delegation is not relegation. Don't delegate and then relegate authority. Delegation also means you must supervise. People say that what you delegate, you must supervise or you must inspect. You don't delegate without supervising and without inspecting. Then delegation also is a learning process and is built up gradually. You delegate not totally, you delegate piecemeal by piecemeal. And so when a person has succeeded at a certain level of responsibility, you increase another responsibility until you can stand alone. So, in a bid to avoid micromanaging, you should not come to the point when you now allow a novice to destroy the company. And part of delegation is allowing people to fail while learning. You must leave a provision for what if this man fails? Because in life, failure seems to be a very, very great tool to build excellence. And so if you're a leader who is quickly going to be angered because somebody has failed, then you can't delegate. Meeting up with a standard isn't easy, but patience with a follower will produce great achievements.
Thank you very much, sir. I really appreciate you for the answers to these questions and for the teaching during NeoCon 2020. I'm taking it off from where Dr. Dibade stopped. You mentioned during the anniversary that instruction plus intercession, instruction minus intercession is mere oratory. And then instruction plus intercession will lead to effectiveness. Now, in a secular organization where, we should pray, of course, we should pray about everything. We should intercede for people. When you have people that are not following your instructions, what do? Where do we draw the balance between intercession and discipline of people on our team? Thank you.
I think that leaders should never make presumptions. At the initiation of any enterprise or delegation of any duty, you must set benchmarks. You must define expectations. You must tell people, look, go and do this, but this is the outcome. Have the outcome in view. There was a book written by a man called Ken Blanchard, and I got, when the book came out newly, a scholar or one of his speaker brought back book to Singapore when we were there in a conference. And one of the main theses of the 1 minute manager is tell people the outcome, tell people the expected end before you get them to do what they want to do. And so, in any establishment, when you don't give people, this is what's expected of you. Look, friend, you are teaching this class. We expect 90% in mathematics or 100% in mathematics. That's what we can take. Please, you are cleaning this floor. We expect that when you are finished cleaning the floor, when people look at the floor, they will see themselves. That what happens in many places. Oh, you are going to take care of these burdens. We expect if you take care of these burdens, there will be no crease. So when you have laid those benchmarks or those outcomes, then people are trained with those outcomes in view. And then you now have a way in which you measure their performance. And that performance measurements could either be formative or summative. But usually it's better to make it formative, so that at the end of the day, they would almost gradually build up their confidence. Their confidence quotient will increase, and with time, they can do well. So in an establishment, before you get people into battle, you must mimic the battle strategy. You must have your tactics, and you must tell them what they have to outcome. But in a Christian setting, and even in a secular setting, regardless of what you have done, we always believe there's an invisible factor governed by forces we don't know of. And that these forces can be influenced by something bigger than our brains. And those forces can be influenced by prayer. And many Christians will tell you, whether they take a secular job or they're involved in a sacred job, that prayer is a silent force that can even make an inadequacy be turned into outstanding achievements.
So, it's a follow-up to that question, sir. Is it okay to pray in secular organizations, maybe a secular office, to lead a prayer when there are people of other faith in that organization?
Well, I want to say this, that it's good to respect people's religious persuasion. But at the same time, too, you must also make them respect your own religious persuasion. I belong to the West African College of Physicians. And when we meet, we have a minute for silent meditation. Silent meditation bridges the gap in such a way that you're not going to be imposing a religion to another person. And during that period, If you believe in yoga, you do your yoga. If you believe in nothing, you go into nothingness, quietness. And if you believe in Christ, you pray. I've been to meetings in the Aso Rock, and what they do is that they start the beginning prayer with a Christian, and they end up with Muslim prayer. Prayer is always good, but it doesn't always have to be noisy. You don't come to a secular meeting in the class and you begin to speak in tongues, and then speak in tongues for a meeting was supposed to be for 1 hour. Speak in tongues for 30 minutes. At the end of the day, they will bond you to a psychiatric clinic. So I think you need a lot of wisdom.
Thank you so much, sir. I'm so grateful that I'm here to partake of this meeting. Thank you so much. Sir, during the International Leadership Conference, your dear wife, Reverend Mrs. Ayodele Erhabor, spoke about the leader and his home raising godly children. And one of the key points she mentioned is that child rearing takes a lot of effort. As a busy professional, a career woman, who is also expected to work hard in order to be promoted at work, how does one balance it up with the family and maintaining a good home front?
I think the first thing is the priorities. Somebody says life is defined by your priorities and your posteriorities. Before you set on the journey of life, today I saw a colleague of mine who came to me and said, I'm the only one taking care of my children. She said, my husband is somewhere else. I said, why did you marry a doctor? I said, you would have married somebody else. So why do you complain? You married the doctor is on call everywhere. Hey, and you are also a doctor. I mean, that was funny, but that was true. Set your priorities. What is the number one in your life? Between your job and your home, or between your job and your children, what's set priorities? And then recognize the phase of your priorities. When your children are very young, they need all the attention. So, even if you are a doctor, you may have to do your subspecialty in the discipline that allows you to have time. You may have to space your children, or you may not need to have many children. But you have to ask yourself, if you have to choose between your job and your children, which should you choose? The bottom line is wisdom.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, that was a wonderful one. I would like to quickly say to our listeners and viewers that the host of this program has written several books, and you can actually get them from Amazon. You can download, you can please get these books. These are powerful books that will really transform you and help you in the course of leadership. Sir, during the course of Econ 2020, there was this topic, addition. A friend of mine is an Arsenal fan, and he has this passion for football. And since for the past few seasons, Arsenal have not really won any league or cup or trophy. In order to get reward for his passion, he decided to go on betting. I don't want to mention names of the betting company and all that, but now he's now so much into even Baba Ijebu and all form of betting arrangements. And he doesn't really see it as an issue. He feels it's a reward for his passion. So what do you have to say about that? Addiction, how do we handle it?
You see, somebody was saying that addiction, initially you derive some degree of satisfaction. It's your hunger for some pleasure. Now, the more the desire increases, the more you need to have more to get that same level of pleasure. Then the more the desire comes, you need to have a greater level for a certain point of pleasure. And so you come to a point where you always need this pleasure to meet up your needs. And then you get hooked. So you are imprisoned by your pleasure. I think if your passion imprisons you to the extent of impoverishing you, to the extent of making you lose your home, to the extent of making you lose control of your inner and outward space, then you must know that you have moved away from becoming an Arsenal fan to be a sick person. And they that are sick need a physician.
Oh, thank you so much, sir. Our time is really, really fast spent. I would have loved to ask a personal question, but I don't know if we still have time for that. Okay, sir. Thank you, sir. This is a personal question to me. My late dad, there's one thing about him. He believes that you have no reason to be friends with his enemies, even if those enemies are perceived, if it doesn't really exist. And I know that you mentioned something during your talk that you shouldn't really be seen hanging out with people who give out negative vibes about your leader or your mentor. So my confusion now is, how do you avoid inheriting enemies?
Yes, you see, you can be friendly without being a friend. You can be friendly with people but create boundaries. Friendliness should be based on principles, not preferences. You see, can two work together unless they are agreed? People should know right from time that there are some do's and don'ts about your life, and there are boundaries you accept. Hating people is counterproductive. As people say, it's like taking poison and expecting your enemy to die. And forgiveness is healing. And unforgiveness is allowing the prophecy of your enemy to work very fast on killing you. Be friendly with everybody, but everybody can be your friend. Relate freely with everybody, but keep your boundaries. Enjoy people's company, but don't allow them make a wreck of your other relationship. Your father may have his reasons. I know he's a very prominent artist. He may have had a bitter upbringing. He may have suffered a lot from men and from women. You know, usually women have problems with women, they feel very bad. So they may have all these kind of things in their life. Well, you are a Christian, and you should not allow that to be your principle. Scripture says, be not overcome by evil, but overcome evil with good. When he said overcome evil with good, that does not mean you should not know people are evil. Jesus Christ knew that Judas was evil, but he never allowed his evil to bring him down to his level. Don't allow anybody bring you down so as to become like him. But at the same time, don't put yourself in such a way that you hate him.
Wow, wow, wow. It's been a very great time with our hosts. I'm sure you really enjoyed this chat this evening, and whatever time zone you're actually watching us from. I like to say that you can follow our pastor on Twitter, on Instagram, on Facebook, on Telegram, and you'll get a lot of loads of wisdom from there. It's painful, but we have to bring this meeting to an end. I'm sure a lot of us will be looking forward to another edition of this. But before we close, I'm sure our Father in the Lord, my mentor, our coach, will give a word and then round off with a prayer.
Yes, you know, one of the basic fundamental principles that I made known in the leadership program is that a great leader is a follower. And a great follower aspires to be a great leader. Followership is about mastering the principles of fundamental discipline. You are early, you are courteous, you are disciplined, you are fair. Those are the things you take with you when you become a leader. A leader who has not gone through the fundamentals of discipline will never appreciate man. And so what I want to leave to you is that you need to have a model to follow. For me, that model is Christ. I made a decision several years ago that I will have no other model be it the richest man on earth, being the wisest man on earth, being the most influential person on earth, because none of these models has everything. But Jesus had everything. He was wise, but humble. He was rich, he could associate with the poor. He was righteous, but yet he was a friend of sinners. He was God, and yet he wanted to liberate men. Following him is not just a character we emulate, it's a life we live. And not only that Jesus Christ tells us to follow him, he made us realize that as many people that follow him, he will give power to be like him. I want to ask you today, who is your model? And if you have not made a decision to know Jesus, please, forget about church. I'm not talking about church. I know of a personal encounter with God. You can do it now as I pray. Heavenly Father, I pray for as many that haven't known Christ. I pray you bring them to the knowledge of the risen Christ. Amen. I pray Christ will dwell in their heart by faith. Amen. And that Christ will change and alter their lives. I pray for all my listeners, especially in this season, you will keep them in perfect health. Amen. You will supply their need. Amen. You will support them. Amen. You will deliver them. Amen. You will not allow the wicked one have any hand upon them. Amen. May the grace of God be upon you. Amen. May the power of God shield you. Amen. May you make a success all the days of your life. Amen. Thank you for tuning in. I'll be coming back next week with a Facebook Live, and I'll be continuing my discussion on worry. And I'll be talking on how great men handle their worry. I hope you will tune in. Tune in with me on Facebook. I have what I call the I Hope, which words I send every day of encouragement, on Twitter, on Telegram. I was discussing with a busy cardiologist in the US this morning, and he told me that I go to work as early as 5 a.m. in the morning to do my procedures. And after my procedures, I settle down to listen to your daily inspirational message. And I do it every day. I wish you could be that, you do it every day to encourage you, to strengthen you. I've always said, don't make a case against yourself. God will never make a case against you. Out of the broken piece of your past, God shall build an edifice of hope. Thank you so much.